What if one single gray hair changed your entire life? Finding that first silver strand is usually a moment of quiet annoyance. We pluck it or hide it, but ancient traditions viewed that silver strand as a vital, urgent message. To understand why, look at this timeline. According to ancient Buddhist texts, humans once lived much longer than we do today. While a modern person might live 80 years, the man in our story, King Makadeva, had an expected lifespan of 84,000 years. He had spent 80,000 years as a young king, surrounded by wealth and power. For 80 millennia, he focused on expanding his influence and enjoying the sensory pleasures of the court. When you have 80,000 years behind you and thousands more ahead, time stops feeling like a limited resource. This abundance of days creates a veil, making it seem as if the clock has stopped ticking entirely. Despite his immense lifespan, Makadeva gave his royal barber a standing order. If the barber ever saw a single gray hair on the king's head, he was to report it immediately. The barber agreed, and another 4,000 years passed. The kingdom remained stable, and the days blurred together without consequence. This sense of forever is a mindset we often carry in our own youth. When life feels impossibly long, we operate as if we are invincible. Under the assumption of endless tomorrows, it is easy to delay the work of personal growth. We promise ourselves we will focus on what actually matters later, because later feels like it will never end. Then, after 84,000 years of rule, the day arrived. While cutting the king's hair, the royal barber stopped. He had finally found a single gray strand. Following his instructions, the barber reached for his golden tweezers, carefully plucked the silver hair, and placed it directly into Makadeva's open hand. Looking down at that hair, the king felt as though he were trapped inside a burning house. The realization was so physical that sweat rolled down his back, and his body began to shudder. He realized he had spent his life focused on the crown and the kingdom, leaving the inner struggles of the mind, the quiet work of mastering greed and envy, completely untouched. To Makadeva, that loss of pigment was the messenger of death sitting right on his head. It was proof that even a king cannot escape the passage of time. If today were a reminder that life is limited, what would you change? Are you spending your time on what truly matters? Makadeva did not wait for a second warning. He granted the income of an entire town to the barber as a reward, and then summoned his eldest son to hand over the throne. When his ministers asked why he was leaving so suddenly, the king held up the silver hair. He explained that youth and middle age were ending, and he could no longer ignore the third stage, old age. He declared that very day was the time for him to leave the palace behind, enter the forest, and be ordained as a monk. Seeing his own mortality clearly, he knew that real change required action today, rather than empty promises for tomorrow. Leaving his wealth and his weeping subjects, Makadeva walked into the forest to begin a life of meditation. His daily practice focused on developing the 4 heavenly states of mind. This model represents his mental shift. First is loving kindness, an affection for all. Second is compassion, feeling sympathy for those suffering. Third is joy, finding happiness when others succeed. And finally, inner calm, maintaining peace during trouble. He dedicated 84,000 years to this humble existence. This life brought him a mental stillness that decades of absolute power never could. The value of a life is found in this disciplined state of mind, rather than the jewels in a crown or the count of days. What kind of life do you want to look back on one day? What would you regret if you waited too long to change? After years of sincere effort in the forest, the Bodhisattva peacefully passed away. Because of his spiritual choices, he was reborn into a high heaven world where he lived for 1 million years. The physical signs of time passing act as an alarm clock, reminding us that our remaining moments are precious. A wise person does not wait for a perfect day to start living with purpose. They begin immediately. As the story concludes, even a long life is too short to waste.